Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Cavanaugh's Corner. Today on the show I'm going to be talking about a movie that is one of my favorites, definitely a big important part of my childhood. It is in fact the first film I ever saw when I was a kid. I think I was 2 or 3 when I saw this film. I was very young, but it has been ingrained in my memory ever since. And it actually is one of my favorite Disney films, and this is kind of funny because it's not the movie you might think it is. Today I'm going to be talking about the new 4K version of The Little Mermaid. Yes, The Little Mermaid. I know what you're thinking, how the heck is this one of Andrew's favorite films? It is. Anytime, when I think of movies that really shaped my childhood, or movies that really had a big impact on me, this movie really gave me a love for cinema. And it may sound crazy, but even though it is the first movie I ever saw, and there are obviously better animated movies out there, The Little Mermaid is not the greatest Disney film. It definitely ushered in the whole renaissance of Disney back in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. This was a huge film of my childhood. My mom loves this movie still to this day, and honestly, I really get emotionally hit by this movie. There are some scenes in this that still ring true to this day, and I'm very glad that Disney has put this out in 4K. Now, again, today I'm not going to be talking about the movie itself. If you haven't seen The Little Mermaid by now, please see it, watch it any way you can. It is a great animated film. Again, it's not one of Disney's best in my opinion, but it is a phenomenal animated movie for kids and adults alike. I really enjoy this film. But today I'm going to talk about the 4K version of this. Now, this is yet another one of these movies where when I first saw it when I was a kid, it was on VHS, and yes, I had the VHS clamshell with the big golden shaft, I should say, on the front of it. I did have that. If you don't know what I'm talking about, look it up. I had that VHS copy. I do not know what happened to that thing. It's probably worth a lot of money now, but I do not know what happened to that thing. I also had it on DVD. I had it on the Blu-ray that came out years ago, and now I've got it on this new special edition 4K. This is the anniversary edition of the film. This movie's, I think it's 30 years old now, which is kind of crazy. This movie's 30 years old. But it is a great animated movie. And, I had some reservations going into this. The movie, when I got it on Blu-ray a few years ago, it looked great. And I honestly, I didn't know how 4K was going to make this movie look any better. I really had some reservations, and this is the first animated film that I've bought on 4K. I don't own any other animated films on 4K. This is the first one, and I figured it would be a good first movie I ever saw, so it might as well be my first 4K. And going and watching this on 4K, I have to say, I was blown away by this disc. This is a stupendous watch on 4K. Now, again, it is an animated film, so you're not going to get some of the nuances you get with the live-action film. I understand that. However, there is one big component I'm going to talk about with this 4K, and that is the usage of HDR, I should say. The usage of HDR in this is really incredible. Of course, the 4K brings the picture to a point where you can kind of see almost like brush strokes on this movie. This movie was hand-drawn, and you can tell it's hand-drawn. It is really incredible. There are CGI elements. They're very small elements here and there. The movie is very hand-drawn, and you can really see some details with this 4K that are brought out that I have missed before. And I've seen this movie many times. And I really was surprised on how much this 4K disc brought out. Very impressed with that. The big component, as I mentioned earlier, is the high dynamic range on the disc. Now, this disc has got HDR10, It does not have Dolby Vision, it's just HDR10. But the HDR10 lends a new color palette to this film, and the film is much more vibrant than it ever has been before. The colors of the coral, the fish, Ariel herself, her hair, her tail, I mean, we're talking everything in this movie is bumped up a notch with that HDR. The real big standouts to me were the Under the Sea sequence, that song, Kiss the Girl. The musical sequences are really incredible. The sound is also a massive improvement that I'm going to get into in a minute. But the visuals throughout the film are truly mind-blowing. There is a sequence where King Triton gets very upset and wrecks Ariel's little underwater memento museum thingamajiggy and her little hideaway, as I like to call it. But when he does that, he lights up that scepter. There's a shot of his eyes, and it's almost like dark around his face, and it's just his eyes. You can just see how angry he is. And the HDR really brings out the light in that scene, light throughout the film. The way the movie, the animation plays with light is very, very, it's awe-inspiring, I should really say. It's pretty cool to see. And the HDR only lightens those scenes even more. The light effects are wild. How they were able to pull this off 30 years ago is beyond me. It is really impressive to see. The lightning effects, that is really wild to see. It is amazing how they were able to animate that and make it look as good as it does all these years later. And that remastering they did on this disc all throughout the film really shows. I mean, this movie has never looked better, and I honestly don't know how it's going to get any better than this. This is a standout in my collection. I was very, very impressed. The other thing I want to mention is that this guy has got a new Dolby Atmos mix. And the Dolby Atmos, I wouldn't say it's as vivid as some other Dolby Atmos tracks. It is a little subdued at times, but it really stands out when it comes to musical score. The voices in the film, all the actors that lent their voice to the characters in the film, they're crystal clear. I mean, their voice acting has always been pretty great, but you can really get the nuances now out of them in this version. I was very impressed with that. The musical sequences are, of course, the standout. The ones I mentioned earlier are amazing. Kiss the Girl is a great song. Under the Sea is obviously a kind of a legendary song in the Disney catalog. But the one that really got me was the Part of Your World scene near the beginning of the film, because you can really hear how Jodie Benson, the voice of Ariel, how she's part talking, part singing. And I know this has been a part of that song since it came out, but you can really hear her kind of like doing. You can almost like close your eyes and almost imagine her in the booth, kind of having fun with this song. And it is amazing sounding. All the overheads, the surrounds, everything are used really well in this movie. The storm sequence where the ship catches fire near the beginning of the film is another big standout in there. You really get a sense that you're surrounded by that roaring ocean and the fire and everything. It puts you right in the middle of it, and it really is the definition of immersive audio. I was very, very impressed by the Dolby Atmos on this. And again, for an animated film, it really blew me away on how beautiful it looks all these years later. The color palette in this film is beautiful. It is really, really special. And I was really glad to see that Disney took the time and really did a phenomenal job at remastering this movie. Just an incredible job on their behalf. Also, it comes with a new Blu-ray that has some new special features. Alan Menken has a whole little featurette behind-the-scenes thing in here where he talks about him writing the music and doing the music for the film, and that is really cool to see because this film does have some of my favorite Disney tracks. I love it. I was really, really impressed with that. They also interview Jodie Benson and some of the other actors and actresses in the film, and I was very, very impressed with the special features as well. It was pretty cool. They also show some of the original cast recording sessions, which I thought was really wild to see. The footage isn't that great, but again, we're talking 30 years ago. It was probably filmed on a big old VHS camcorder, I should say. So I was glad that they included that stuff on the Blu-ray. Now this version here, I picked up at Target because I saw that they had this limited edition. Nobody else really had it. This guy here is pretty cool. I'm going to kind of take it apart so you can see it. So it has these big pictures of the characters in the film. There's Ursula, bitch. They have that in there. And here's Flounder and Sebastian. I really love this. And they're the discs. And it also has this little this little storybook along with some behind-the-scenes things with all the animations and everything. I always loved that original poster. That's such a beautiful poster. And it has some stuff inside there I thought was really cool. I mean, overall, this was like 30-something bucks, but it's expensive. But I will say, to bring back the memories that it brought back and to give me the chills that it did for a 30-year-old animated film, I was not expecting it. I really was not expecting it. I was very much impressed with The Little Mermaid on 4K. If you want to show this film to your kids and you want to show it to them in the absolute best quality possible, please pick up this 4K. It is unreal how incredible it is. That Dolby Atmos soundtrack makes the whole proceeding in just even more involving. I was very, very immersed in this film, and I can't imagine this movie looking any better than it did. It felt like I was under the sea with Ariel myself. So only you don't get soaked, which is nice. You don't get wet. So anyway, please, if you enjoyed this film, go pick up The Little Mermaid on 4K. I highly, highly recommend it. I went on a little bit of a Disney kick, and I picked up another Disney film that I'm going to be reviewing next time. And I'm excited for this next one, so I hope you stay tuned for that next episode of Cavanaugh's Corner. Until then, I'm Andrew Cavanaugh. Thank you for coming back to the channel. We love you. Have a great night. Take it easy.